Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with the next session in the Alpha Wolf Personal Development and Expansion series. So, this session is all about understanding synaptic pathway development. So, it's a practice that I use to develop the synaptic pathways that I want, and we understand synaptic pathways are simply thoughts, beliefs, actions, activities, emotions, emotional responses, and all of this. So, what we're trying to do is essentially curate and become aware of the synaptic pathways that I want to overdevelop and the synaptic pathways that I want to underdevelop. So, for example, should someone say something that offends me, well, I want to underdevelop the synaptic pathway that causes me to respond in anger or to become triggered by it. So, we understand that what we are doing is using our conscious awareness, okay, being observant of our behavior and our responses to interactions or circumstances that happen in our life, and sort of curate instead of me being triggered by someone that says something that offends me or that goes against what I think or feel. I want to be able to dictate or choose the response that I have. So it's this process of sort of creating separation or space between compulsive behaviors. So a compulsive behavior is a already overdeveloped synaptic pathway because we just understand, okay, with synaptic pathways, what they do in essence is transfer data, transfer information through electrical impulses. So, what I'm trying to do is become aware of the impulses or the electrical impulses that I don't want, and I'm trying to stop them and then reprogramming new electrical impulses. So, essentially, if we think about our brain as being a highway or a road network, we're trying to close down specific roads that we don't want to travel down, and we're trying to redirect trigger points to go down new routes. Okay. So it's very simple, but it's also very complex in the way that if we're unaware of our sort of brain and how it operates and our natural or our preconditioned synaptic pathways, it's a very confusing thing. How do I not get angry when someone calls me an idiot or someone calls me pathetic? Do you know what I mean? How do I not respond to that? Should someone walk up and slap me in the face, how do I not respond by becoming angry? And the way is to create separation. So there are many different ways to create separation. One is, breathing exercises. So, like for example, if I had anger management issues and I found it very difficult, should someone slap me in the face, well, instead of me reacting, I could count to 10. I could take 10 deep breaths. I could do box breathing. I could, try and breathe. So we understand that breath work and breathing alters our sort of biochemical responses. It's one of the ways that we can trigger biochemical responses. For example, should I breathe really rapidly like I am, um, running or doing something that's highly exerting, I can trigger adrenaline to be dumped in my brain and my body. So we understand, should I breathe very slowly and take deep and slow breaths? I can release the biochemical responses that take away the cortisol out of my body. So we understand there are many different ways to do it. What we are looking at today is the aspect of the synaptic pathways, so the thoughts, because essentially that's what synaptic pathways are. are thoughts, and thoughts equal emotions. Emotions equal how I feel equals how I react. Do you know what I mean? So we're not so much trying to jump ahead and go straight to the action or behavioral outcome. What we are focusing in on in this process is we're focusing in on laying the groundwork or building those roads that we want our thoughts to travel in different forms of circumstances, events, and different things that happen. So, should someone, like, for example, should someone try to feed my ego and tell me how amazing I am and how great I am and all of this, like, well, we don't want the synaptic pathway that's already preconditioned to sort of get up our own ass and sort of feel all high and mighty. Do you sort of get it? Like, we want to alter that to say, well, why are they saying this to me? You know, why are they behaving like this? Because if we think about it like this, if we've ever dealt with narcissists, narcissists typically understand if I say pretty words to you and boost your ego, I can usually manipulate you into believing my intentions for that are good. So it's very important how this is how it becomes complex because there are many different events or circumstances or layers to our sort of synaptic pathways. Sometimes they're triggered by other people, sometimes they're triggered by our thoughts, sometimes they're triggered by our beliefs, sometimes they're triggered by our emotion. Should I just all of a sudden start feeling fear? What that does is that runs synaptic pathways associated to that feeling of fear. So we understand there are many different reasons or ways that our synaptic pathways are triggered into firing. So what we're looking at today is sort of being the architect of our own mind and creating those roadways that we want our thoughts to flow, regardless of how those thoughts are triggered, regardless of the trigger points. So we're going to be focusing more on constructing and curating the synaptic pathways and not sort of running or sort of responding to trigger points. So that's a little bit more advanced after we've set the groundwork, okay? Then what we do is then we start becoming observant of the triggering of those synaptic pathways. So it's sort of like this. Should I always have these feelings of self-doubt and these feelings of not being good enough and these beliefs of not being good enough? Well, we want to go in and we want to start altering and shaping those to creating the new synaptic pathway of you are good enough. You know what I mean? So we're going to look at it simply today, and then we're going to look at it more advanced down the track. But essentially, what we are trying to do today is work on understanding, like, what are the synaptic pathways that we want to develop and strengthen? Like, what is it? Is it that we want positive language? So, what is the language we want to use no matter what triggers, my feelings of not being good enough? So, we're picking a couple, a handful, as many as you want, and we're just reprogramming in, okay, new language patterns. So we're associating specific language to having specific meaning. So should I feel not good enough, then I'm running a language pattern of you are good enough. And then I'm assigning the meaning to that. Okay. And we're strengthening that. So when we understand strengthening and building synaptic pathways or developing them, It's about identifying you are good enough and then running that and saying it again and again and again and again. It's sort of like if we're trying to build muscle memory, we're trying to build thought memory, that feelings, thoughts, memories, all of this run specific patterns or specific programs or specific language patterns or specific beliefs. So should I, and to understand this simply and very, very simply is a language pattern is a construction of different words. Same with a narrative. A narrative is a construction of different words. A thought once is a thought. A thought on repeat becomes a belief. So the more I think about a thought, the stronger that synaptic pathway becomes. So we're doing the mental reps, so to speak. So what we want to do is we want to go through and we want to curate. Let's stick to one topic of you are not good enough, or feelings of insecurity, or low self-worth, low self-esteem, lack of self-confidence. These are all the same thing because they all have similar triggers. They're varying and different. So self-worth might be that, like, I view myself as being less than other people. Like a lack of self-confidence is I don't believe that I am able to do this. I'm not confident in the outcome. I'm not certain of the outcomes. So, you know, that's the slight differences. Okay. So we're going to generally wrap them all into one, and we're going to create a new synaptic pathway for those feelings. So, should I feel less than other people? You are good enough. Should I feel a lack of confidence? You are good enough. Should I feel insecure about who I am and where I am and where I'm situated in my environment? You are good enough. So we're creating that synaptic pathway and assigning it to all those different trigger points. Okay. And we can go deeper and we can assign specific language or specific language pattern to individually each of the trigger points if we want to. Okay, and that's a little bit more advanced. But right now, what we want to do is we want to create one general term for every time I feel less than or bad about myself, I'm not good enough, or low self-worth, where I think other people are above me, or lack of self-confidence. I'm not certain in the outcomes that I can get and that will come of what I'm trying to achieve and do in life, or lack of self-belief, that I don't have belief within myself. So we just want, for all these different trigger points, we want the synaptic pathway to be you are good enough. So if I'm trying to do something new, like let's say, and let's take a circumstance of an easy one for us to all understand, of getting into shape and sort of working out. So when I'm creating a new habit of training and exercising and sort of getting back into shape, well, I'm going to feel a little bit of, lack of confidence, that, I'm not quite, certain that if I go and work out, let's say 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, that I'm going to get the results that I want. And what we're doing is every time we feel that way, when we're sort of preparing ourselves to go to the gym or to go and work out, every time that feeling comes up of, I don't think this is going to work, you are good enough. That's what we're doing. So what we have to do is we have to strengthen in initially the you are good enough. So we repeat it so that, for example, the association between you are good enough is linked so that every time I say you, the next word is going to be are. Every time I say you are, the next word is going to be good. Every time I say you are good, the next word is going to be enough. So what we're doing is we're building the synaptic pathway between you are good, you are good enough. Do you sort of get it? So that that language pattern runs. So it's not, you know, you may be good enough. It's always you are good enough. So what we want to do is we want to use very specific language. You are good enough. And what we are doing is we are putting those four words always in succession. So we're not trying to mix it up and add new words and all of this. We're just using those four words so that every time I go to say you, the next three words are always going to be are good enough. And it runs as a single language pattern. And we're not sitting there saying you. What's the next word again? Do you sort of get it? So we're always associating you are good enough as being like one language pattern, but it's always in that succession. So we're repeating it. You are good enough. You are good enough. You are good enough. You are good enough. So that it is that sequence between you are good enough every time without separation, without adding anything in, without taking anything out. Okay. So this is very important because this is the first step. We are building the synaptic pathway of you are good enough so that when I feel not good enough, that runs in that succession without conscious thought. And this is how we start to build up that synaptic pathway. So the first step is to associate the language pattern or create the language pattern. And a funny thing is if we can do it for you are good enough, we can do it for everything. So we can make it as simple or as complex as we want. But for today, we're going to keep it simple as just you are good enough. And basically, what we are doing is we are just strengthening that so that I don't have to think, what are the next words when I want to run that thought pattern, when I want to run that language pattern, when I want to run that narrative. I don't have to think and sort of construct it on the fly. It's already there, it's ingrained. It's sort of like learning how to do a bicep curl. Okay. Like we learn the movement and we strengthen the synaptic pathway of the movement through muscle memory, okay, so that I know how to do a bicep curl. And then when I increase the weight, okay, it's the exact same movement. Do you sort of get it? I'm not recreating the movement as I increase the weight. I am repeating the movement, and the variable that changes is the weight. The movement doesn't change. And this is very important because should I go through and try and, make stuff up on the fly and alter and shift and change this and that, every time, like I'm not strengthening the synaptic pathway. I have to do the exact same thing every time. Okay. So if I wanted to change that to, you know, you are good enough, you are lovable. And I want to put you are lovable after you are good enough, I can do that. Do you know what I mean? But I'm not changing it from you are good enough, you are lovable to the next time I go to say it, you are good enough, you're amazing. And then the next time I say it, you are good enough, you're this amazing person. Like I'm not changing the language every iteration, doing the same language, okay? And I can alter that language as much or as little as I want, but I have to like stick to it. So it's sort of like I'm not lifting up a bicep curl and then twisting my arm around, and then lifting up a bicep curl and then twisting it the other way, and then lifting up a bicep curl and oh, my arm's like this now. Like, do you sort of get it? Like, we're not going through and trying to be tricky and trying to change things. Like, repetition is what builds the synaptic pathway. Consistency is what builds the synaptic pathway. So the consistency of the language or the language pattern and the repetition of saying that consistent language pattern again and again and again is what strengthens the synaptic pathway. So that's the first step, creating and curating the language. The next step is associating the meaning to that language. So this isn't, we're not changing anything. Now we've got the language locked in of you are good enough. So that always fires in that sequence, not saying like you good are enough. You good are enough. Like, we're not changing the sequence. The sequence is the same. The words are the same. Now we are associating the meaning of what does you are good enough mean. And like the language, like the sequence of the language, okay, we are not changing the meaning every time. Like, you are good enough has to mean a specific thing, okay? So, like, we can have as many meanings as we want to assign to it, just like I can vary my bicep curl every time once I've locked in the muscle movements for each of the variations. Okay? So it's very important to understand this because it's the discipline to not vary or not stray from the synaptic pathway that we're developing. Because what happens is every time I vary, I am creating a competing synaptic pathway. This is what makes it complicated. When I'm sort of doing things on the fly and not doing them consistently in the same sequence, the same order, using the same language. Okay, so if I'm not using the same meaning for you are good enough, okay, and I'm changing that meaning every time I say it, like, I'm not developing a cohesive meaning for you are good enough. And this is what creates the complexity. Because if every time I have 3 or 4 different competing meanings for you are good enough, like, if they're all being equal in terms of I have done equal amounts of repetition of associating that meaning to you are good enough, I don't dictate or control which one is assigned because it's sort of like a lucky draw. Whichever one runs is which one runs. This is why we create the consistency of doing the same thing to build that base level so that I know that the base will run. The base level will run every time because it's the strongest synaptic pathway, and the competing synaptic pathways I have to then focus on more energy on them consciously to run them. So when we understand this, when we are like developing out our synaptic pathways, we're not trying to develop out our synaptic pathways for conscious awareness. We're trying to do it for unconscious awareness. That's why we're so strict on the language we use, the sequence we use that language, the meaning we associate to that language. Because if we're going around and doing 20 different things every time, what we're doing is creating 20 different competing language patterns, okay, or language, different sequences. So I don't know if it's going to be you are good enough or you good are enough or you enough are good. Like, I don't know which one's going to run because they're all competing. So it makes it very jumbled and less clear. So we want to be crystal clear when we're developing out our synaptic pathways. Okay, so we got to understand, well, what is the meaning we want to you are good enough? And the meaning is the trigger for the emotional state we want to feel. So do we want you are good enough to mean empowerment, that you are empowered? Because we understand the meaning is the subtext for the language that we use. So we're not saying you are empowered, but you are good enough means you are empowered. Do you sort of get it? So it's sort of like it's the subconscious meaning, okay, or subconscious understanding of the language. When I say you are good enough, it means empowerment. And empowerment then triggers an empowered state of being or empowering emotions of feeling good enough, of feeling empowered, of feeling happy, of feeling content, of feeling successful. Do you sort of get it? So what we're doing is we're working through the layers and sort of stitching, so to speak, the language to the sequence, and then we're stitching the language and the sequence to the meaning, and then we're stitching the language, the sequence, the meaning to the emotion that we want to sort of feel or we want to trigger. And then and then the associated effect is the biochemical response. So if the meaning of you are good enough is empowerment, and the emotion it triggers is me to feel happy about who I am, to feel empowered and emboldened and confident about who I am, then the biochemical responses are gonna be, serotonin, dopamine. You know what I mean? If if I wanted to do oxytocin, so we got to understand just quickly the biochemical responses that we are trying to trigger. Serotonin is associated to happiness. Dopamine is associated to achievement. Okay, this is just really simplistic. So, we're not trying to overcomplicate it. We're just using very simple, generalized understandings of these biochemical responses. They are far more complex the deeper we go into them. Okay, oxytocin is connection to others. So if I want to feel serotonin, I have to have the emotion triggered be one that is associated with joy and happiness. If I want to feel dopamine, okay, it has to be associated with achievement. Okay. If I want to feel serotonin, it has to be associated with connection to others. So we just understand that on a very simplistic term, that's what we're trying to do. So you are good enough, okay? We want, you know, we want that to be connected to a serotonin and dopamine. We don't really care too much about the oxytocin at the moment because we're not associating with other people, so to speak. So we can add that in later because we're just doing the base. Okay, so we're getting the base level done. And then we can add on the extra. So it's sort of like if we think about it like cooking, okay, we're setting the base of the meal, okay. So let's say we've got our meat, our potatoes, our veg, okay. Later on, we can add our seasoning. Down the track when we cook it again, we can add our seasoning in earlier if we want. But for now, we just want to understand how do we cook the meat? How do we cook the potatoes? How do we cook the veg? That's it. We don't want to overcomplicate it because we don't understand How long do we need to cook the meat for? How long do we need to cook the veg for? How long do we need to cook the potatoes for? Like, so we're getting that ingrained in us, and then we can start to experiment and start to play around with it and add more creativity to it. So essentially, what we are trying to do is we're getting that base level of you are good enough, okay, is the sequence that runs whenever I feel negative or less than. Whenever I feel low self-worth, I don't feel like I'm someone who is as good as other people. Whenever I feel, you know, lack of self-confidence, whenever I feel self-doubt, whenever I feel insecure about myself. Okay. So these are the trigger points that trigger you are good enough. Okay. So we're not changing you are good enough and adding extra words or anything like that until we have it fully ingrained. The meaning of you are good enough is empowerment. Okay. Is feeling happy. Okay. So you are good enough means empowerment and I feel happy. So every time I say to myself, you are good enough, I'm allowed to feel empowered and happy because that's what meaning does. Meaning allows feeling and emotion. Okay. So every time I feel empowered and happy, I'm allowed to release serotonin and dopamine. Do you sort of understand? So that's the important thing. We are not trying to alter the brain chemistry and alter the brain. We are allowing the brain to operate because in this moment, should I feel sad? Should I feel happy? If I tell myself I'm allowed to feel happy, I'm allowed to feel happy. If I tell myself I'm not allowed to feel happy and I want to feel happy, I'm never going to be allowed to feel happy. So we understand the keys to the kingdom of our mind is this understanding that we are the ones who allow ourselves to feel certain ways, or we don't allow ourselves to feel certain ways. It's all within our control. Do you sort of get it? Like we're not trying to convince ourselves that we are happy. We are simply allowing ourselves to be happy because we don't need to convince ourselves to be happy. If I tell myself, you are happy, and I allow myself to feel happy, I'm allowed to feel happy. Do you sort of get it? I don't have to convince myself that I'm happy to feel happy. Like if I say you are happy, and I allow myself to feel happy, I'm allowing myself to feel it. If I say you are happy and I don't allow myself to feel happy, I will never feel happy no matter what I do. So we understand the importance of this, that releasing the biochemical responses that are the physical sensation of the emotional states we are in, okay, is simply us allowing ourselves to feel that way. So, should I want to, as a sidetrack, should I want to feel content and satisfied in life? Like nothing in my external environment ever has to change for me to do that if I allow myself to do that. Should I try to change or allow myself to do that by changing my external environment? I have to physically change my external environment for that to happen. And then any alteration or shift in my external environment can dictate that that is no longer applicable. So it's very important to understand this, that being happy in life, being in love, feeling fulfilled, whatever the emotion you want in life, whatever you want to physically feel within yourself, is like a simple choice of allowing. Okay, so that's very important. Nothing has to change in the external environment. Nothing has to change in the internal environment if I allow myself. So it's very, very important to understand this, because this is what makes it complex to people, that they don't understand. If I simply allow myself to feel happy and I tell myself I'm happy, I become happy. Do you sort of get it? If I allow myself to feel good about myself, I feel good about myself. I don't have to change the external environment. I don't have to achieve anything in life. If I allow myself to feel good about who I am, I feel good about who I am. So that's the most important thing, is we are not trying to change and alter and rewire our brain so that, you know, we can influence the external environment so that we can finally feel how we want to feel. The simple thing, truth is, it's all about allowing. And we have the control, no one else. If I want to feel love in my life, in a love of life, if I allow myself to feel love in life and a love of my life, I feel it. If I tell myself that I have to find the love of my life to feel love in my life, I will never feel it unless I find that person. Do you sort of get it? So we understand the external environment. We're not trying to fuck with that. We are focused in on understanding that I hold the keys to everything that I want to feel in life. Okay? No one else. No one else. We don't give the keys to other people and say, you are the only one who's allowed to make me feel happy about who I am. That is a recipe for disaster. We do not do that. So we understand with the synaptic pathways, the language that I choose. So you are good enough. The sequence, you are good enough. Okay, the meaning, you are good enough, means empowerment and happy. Okay, when I assign that meaning, I am allowed to feel empowered and happy. The byproduct is I feel empowered and happy if I allow myself. Do you sort of get it? When I physically feel empowered and happy, the external result is my actions are more joyous and empowered. My behaviors are more joyous and empowered. So we understand I hold the keys to jail my mind and lock myself in hell, or I hold the keys to free my mind and allow myself to be, do, and have whatever I want in life without having to alter, shift, or change the external environment. Do you sort of understand? It's very important to understand this, because if we do not understand this, we are not allowed out of hell. We are our own jailer, holding ourselves in hell for eternity. So if we don't want to live in hell for eternity within our own mind, then we understand and accept I am the one that has the keys to either unlock the door and allow myself out of hell, or to lock the door and throw that key away and force myself to live eternity in hell. Okay? So we understand the language isn't going to change us from being in hell. The sequence of the language, or the language pattern or narrative, is not going to change us from living in hell. the meaning we assign to the language that we say will not um, change us or allow us to not live in hell. The emotions we feel, what we say that we are. If I say I'm happy, that does not allow me to let myself out of hell. Understanding that I hold the key, that if I choose to allow myself to feel happy and free, I feel happy and free. If I choose to feel entrapped and enslaved within hell, I feel entrapped and enslaved within hell. It's a choice, decision. So we understand I hold the keys, and anything that I feel right now, I am the one dictating it to myself, not the external environment, because that is an excuse. Saying that my circumstances are the reason I have to stay in hell. Saying that because I don't have the love of my life, I have to stay in hell. Because I don't have success or validation, I have to stay in hell. Do you sort of get it? It's a choice. Okay. So, like, for example, should I want to feel successful within my own life and career? I hold that key. For me to say that I need anything external to me to feel that is an illusion, because I'm pretending like I have to find the key in my external environment while it's sitting in my hand. How am I ever going to find it in the external environment? It's right here in my hand. Do you sort of understand? The key is right here. If I choose to pretend like it's not in my hand, I will live my life in an illusion that I am trapped with no way out. If I pretend like I need to find the key because this is not the right key, I am trapped in an illusion of looking for something that I will never find. Why? Because it's in my hand. There isn't another key. I'm not looking for, there's no copies of this key. There is this and this, only this key. So the key to happiness in life is in your hand right now. And the simple truth is, do you allow yourself to feel happy, or do you create an illusion that the key is not in your hand? Do you understand? It's very important, because people spend millions of dollars, billions of dollars every year giving their money to posers who tell them that they can find this key outside in the external environment, and they'll show them the way to find the key. And it's sitting right there. It has never changed. It's been there when it was there when I was born. It was there when I was a child. It was there when I was in hell, going through my own personal hell. It's always been there. It'll be there the day I die. The day I die, that key will still be in my hand. Do you understand? There is nothing to find in the external environment. Should I pretend like someone else is holding the key that I'm seeking, I am forever feeling unfulfilled in every relationship that I enter into. I am feeling like I need other people to set me free, because I can never feel free on my own. That's codependency. I lived through that. I believed that so long of my life, that someone else held the key to me feeling happy. And the funny thing is, once I unlock that door, how can I feel anything but happy? Because I'm allowed to feel happy. regardless of the environment, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of anything. Do you understand? Once I accept that this is the key that frees me to feeling however I want, and we realize what is this key? My conscious decision to allow myself to be happy, to feel successful, to feel love, to feel connected to others, to feel euphoria in this world, to feel like this world is heaven, whatever it may be. This key is the golden key of life, and it's within the mind right now. All I have to do is accept the truth that there is nothing external to me. There is only the internal. Should I want to feel happy, money is not the key. Do you sort of get it? Should I want to feel love? Other people are not the key. Should I want to feel successful? Achievement is not the key. Should I want to feel confident within myself? External validation is not the key. The key is right here, and it is my conscious decision to allow myself to feel whatever I want. Should I want to decide that I am not allowed to be happy until I achieve material success, i.e., until I get the money? I am locking myself in hell until I achieve this perceived result. But the problem is, I am not going to unlock myself because I will always need more and more and more because I'm looking to validate who I am internally in the external environment and my external results. The secret to becoming who you want to be in life is found in this key within your mind. That's it. Who do you want to be in life? Once you decide who you want to be in life and you realize I have the key to unlock and allow that person to be, I am free to be that person. Do you sort of get it? I don't need anything fucking else. I have the key, the golden key of life, the key to my mind, my emotions, to feeling everything I've ever seeked in life. Money cannot buy what this key does. For money means nothing. It is a resource like water. Do I say to myself, I cannot be happy unless I have water? If only I had water, I would be happy. Oh, that water would make me so happy. I would feel so good about myself if I had water. Water would make me feel so empowered in life. Water would make me feel like I am who I want to be. Do you sort of see how stupid of an idea it is? That money is what you seek in life? Money is a resource like water. Should I be walking in the desert without any water on in summer? On a hot day, that water is worth more than any amount of gold in this world. Do you sort of get it? Should I be struggling in my life, unable to feed myself, unable to, have security, to have stability? That money is worth more than the gold. Do you sort of get it? Like money is a resource. When I have enough money to have security, to have shelter, to have food, to have water, No more money is going to make me any more happy. Do you sort of get it? Like money is a resource of commerce that allows me to transfer and secure myself. Outside of that, money doesn't hold value. Just like if there is water all around me, water doesn't hold value. If water is freely accessible and easy to access, it doesn't hold value. I can't trade and barter with the water because it's everywhere. Everyone can get it. Do you sort of see? When I treat money as if it is a scarce resource that is hard to come by, I can never see it. When I treat money like it's an abundant resource and I realize it's everywhere around me, it's everywhere around me. It doesn't really hold that much weight or value over me because it doesn't really matter. Do you sort of get it? So, like, we understand what I want in life is not money. It's not the house. It's not the car. It's not the vacations. It's not the fucking gourmet dinners. It's not that. They are all ways that I have tricked myself into thinking that I would find the key to happiness, to love, to inner peace, to contentment. Do you sort of get it? Like they're the illusions that I create that that allow me to feel good about myself being trapped in hell. That if I can go out to five-star restaurants and eat the best food, I feel good about being trapped in hell, of never feeling good enough, of never feeling happy, of always feeling hollow and empty inside me. Once I realize I have the key within me and it's right in my hand and I can feel however I want to feel in any moment of life, I can be whoever I want to be. I now have the freedom to follow what I like in life, to eat the food that I like without having to need the need to go to a fucking five-star restaurant to try and show people that I'm more successful than them. Do you sort of get it? Like, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with five-star restaurants. There's nothing wrong with big houses. There's nothing wrong with fancy cars, fancy clothes. There's nothing wrong with all of that. But when I am using or seeking that to try and find this key, because I think that is where my key lies to happiness, to joy, to love, to fulfillment, to contentment, to success. Like, that's where it gets wrong because then I have to pretend like I'm happy because I have those external things. So if I have the big house, I have to pretend like I'm happy even if I'm not happy. I have to pretend like I'm successful, even if I'm not doing what I want to do in life. I have to pretend, pretend, pretend. Because should I lift the illusion that the house didn't make me happy, that the car didn't make me happy, my world shatters and crumbles. Up ceases to be up and down ceases to be down. I don't know where I am. My reality has crumbled. Trust me, I've been through it. It's called a mental breakdown. It's where you realize everything that people told you the keys were in is all just illusions created based in consumerism so that other people may pretend like they hold the keys. So realize that everything you seek is already within you. Everything you want is already within you if you allow yourself to have it. You don't need external validation to feel validated from within. You don't need financial gratification to feel like you are good enough. You don't need external success of other people agreeing with you to feel successful. Because these people who say that they're successful in life, who say they live a successful life, are they living the life you truly want in life? Do you know what I mean? Like, if your goal in life is to be an entrepreneur and you love entrepreneurship and all of that, and you love building businesses and creating products and all of that, someone who does that, that says they found happiness in it, like their happiness is going to be pretty aligned to your happiness. Do you sort of get it? But if your goal is to travel and explore the world, yet you're convincing yourself that you need to be in business and an entrepreneur to be happy and you need to make millions of dollars to be happy, like their happiness is never going to make you happy. If you're not a material person and you chase material things, you will always feel empty inside. Do you sort of get it? Like, there's no more than that. Find out what you want in life, what makes you truly happy. Allow yourself to be happy and find people who've achieved it, i.e., I love knowledge. I love sharing knowledge. My idea of success is to be like Alan Watts, to explore ideas. Do you sort of get it? How he lived his life exploring ideas is what makes me excited in life that I would love to do. Do you sort of get it? So if I do similar things to what he did, not to say I talk about the exact same stuff and imitate him, but if I live my life how he lived his life, exploring ideas and conveying those ideas, I become immensely happy. That's the thing. Do you sort of get it? Like, that's it. There's nothing more. So it's not to say that other people are right and other people are wrong. It's to say, if I'm inauthentic with who I aspire to be in this world, I will never feel like I am myself. And who I am is the greatest competitive advantage I have over anyone who tries to imitate me. Do you sort of get it? Tries to compete with me. If I just be who I am, like I don't need to achieve anything to feel good about myself. If I'm imitating other people and trying to be other people, like I have to become them. Do you sort of get it? To feel good about myself. And if what they do in life and who they are doesn't make you happy, it always feels forced and empty. Do you sort of get it? I'm always trying to over promote who I am. You sort of get it? I.e., if I try to imitate Alan Watts and talk about, you know, Taoism like he did, and I do, and I walk every step that he walked, like, do you sort of get it? Like, it's not authentic. So I'm always in competition, trying to out compete. If I just do what I enjoy and talk about what I enjoy, like I think about it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's easy for me to outcompete other people because it's just what I think about. Do you sort of get it? Like, that's the funny thing. But to go even further, if I feel like I need to have the results that Alan Watts had to feel successful about myself, until I get those perceived results, I will never feel good about myself. I'll always feel like an imposter. Should I choose to realize and allow myself to feel good and successful with myself, as myself, I don't need anything. Do you sort of get it? It's a funny thing, but just realize in life, you have this key to everything that you want. The external environment is an illusion. And you can see that in many different ways. So, one thing, society is not based on truth. Okay. Like our brain does not see, our brain does not hear, our brain does not smell, our brain does not feel, it does not taste. Why? Because my tongue transfers taste into electrical impulses and sends them to my brain. And my brain deciphers what that taste is meant to be. My eyes do the same. My nose does the same. My ears do the same. My brain is creating the reality that I see and experience. Like, in essence, it is an illusion. That's not to say if I run into a door at full pelt, like that door doesn't exist. Like, by all means, do that if you want. But like, we just understand our conceptualization of life, of our experience of life, is an illusion that we are creating within our mind. It exists in reality, but how I perceive it existing is the illusion. Do you sort of get it? Like my brain is encased in darkness. It does not see light, yet I can see light. How does my brain understand what that light is? How does my brain decipher from electrical impulses, images, and shapes? Do you sort of get it? Like we understand physically how it does it, but how does it do it, you know, in the sense of constructing the reality around me? Who knows? So we understand that like life is an illusion. So it's not to say that life isn't real. It's to say that if I choose to see this key as being the key of liberation, if I choose to see this key as being nothing but scrap metal, the key becomes both. Whatever I see this key as being, it becomes. But this is the key that allows me to exit the hell of my mind and to become free. So the choice is on me. Do I want to see it as the path to my liberation? Or do I want to see it as worthless junk? Why am I holding on to this worthless scrap of metal? I should be out there finding that true key. That's the important thing. That's perception. Do you sort of get it? That's the illusion our mind creates. That I can either see the key for what it is, or I can create an illusion that the key is not what I'm looking for. It's not that. If only I had that key, but this is not that key. Do you sort of get it? All right. Well, I hope you understand this one and I hope you enjoy it. And like, that's it. This is how we, one, build the synaptic pathways up through this process of understanding. But the other thing is we have to realize that key is the freedom. Because as soon as we realize that key is the freedom, everything changes. And I cease to be enslaved by the hell of my own mind and by the fears in life. Where I have the golden key in life, nothing else holds the value that this key in my hand holds. All I have to do is see it for what it is. And should I choose to live my life never seeing this key for what it is, I'll always wonder, no matter how much I succeed externally, no matter how much I obtain in life, I will never have the joy and happiness and love and ecstaticness, if that's a word, and contentment and, you know, everything in life. This key unlocks everything. Nothing can compare to this key. Trust me. I spent my life looking for it in everything external to me. And when I found it, I found inner peace. I found joy. I found success. I found happiness. I found love, love of self, love of life, love of everything that is living. This key holds everything. And all you need to do is realize it's in your hand. Look in your hand right now, and you will find this key. Do you understand? All right. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.